Welcome to the mandatory post-fight show. We just saw the last crescendo and a great fight, great card, but we will be getting into everything. Before we get into all of that, remember to follow us on our social media channels. We're at the mandatory TKO. Also hit that like and subscribe button because it helps the channel grow, and we do appreciate you if you already have. Also, you can find us on the audio side. So wherever you find your podcast shows, make sure to follow us on there. Also, leave us a rate and review and give us a 5-star because, I mean, why wouldn't you? And we just saw arguably one of the best cards of all time. We will get into that. But Bryan, I think before we get into all the fights, I also want to mention that this is an interactive show, so keep the comments coming because we are going to get into all of your comments. But Bryan, your thoughts just really quickly on the entire card and what we saw this afternoon or this evening because you're on the East Coast there.
I think we're overdoing it a little bit. It was a good card, but I mean, we were people were like, "Hey, this is the best card we've ever seen," and then we saw a couple of people had to drop out because of illnesses. One of which I didn't think mattered anyway. Floyd Schofield, all due respect, I didn't think he was going to put up much of a fight against Shakur Stevenson, but we saw some good fights. We saw some entertaining fights, and we saw some close decisions, which I think was good. Ultimately, though, the main event is where we're going to start. Dmitry Bivol avenges the first loss. And for some people, I mean, I thought he won the first fight. So, and there are some people who are going to say that he's 2-0 against Artur Beterbiev. I think this one was maybe a little more obvious than the first one. And I feel like this one's going to have less debate, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, I think there might be a little bit of a debate for that because I think both fights were, well, the first one I did have Dmitry Bivol winning as well, but facts are facts and Beterbiev won it on paper, according to the judges. So right now it's tied, but Dmitry Bivol beats Artur Beterbiev by majority decision. The cards were 114-114, which is a draw, 115-113, and then one other judge had it scored in favor for Dmitry Bivol, 116-112. Drop your comments on what you think about the scorecards. And Bryan, we'll start off with you. Let's start off with your scorecard, how you had it scored and what you thought about the fight.
I had it 115, 113 for Bivol. Honestly, it could have been 116, 112. One of the judges had it that way. I was toying with the idea of this being a 6-3 fight after 9 rounds because Dmitry Bivol to me won 1, 2, and 3. I think 3 was the one that's a little bit more of a toss-up. I saw some people giving 1 to Beterbiev. I didn't think that was the case. Beterbiev unquestionably won 4 and 5. And then 6, 7, and 8, you saw well 4, 5, and 6, I think it was, but in that mid to late range, like the second half of the fight, you saw Bivol actually kick it into another gear, which wasn't as much the case last time around. Where Beterbiev really won the fight last time was sweeping the last 3 rounds, and it was unquestionable because Bivol was inactive and was, while still moving around and trying to create those angles, Artur Beterbiev was just walking him down and just throwing kind of what he wanted. And this time, that sort of happened earlier, like started happening around 4, round 5. And it was like, okay, is Bivol just conserving his energy to turn it on later? Or is this kind of it? Did he like rush out the gate too quickly? Did he stand and trade too much? Did he catch a punch, like a left hook to the body or something along those lines that he didn't love and just, opting not to exchange anymore? But no, he ended up putting it together. And I felt like, while he was still moving and using the ring to his advantage, which is what he should do against Artur Beterbiev, he was still landing combinations. I felt like he was inside a little bit more in this fight. I felt like he was taking more chances. And we were talking about, look, if he's going to win this fight on the judges' scorecards, he has to take more chances in these sort of exchanges. And I feel like he did that. I think he did that enough to warrant a victory. So I gave him 7 of the 12 rounds. I thought it was very close. The one judge who had it a draw, I don't think that's crazy at all. But I felt like this would be a Bivol fight, which obviously sets up part 3, which I don't think we're gonna get in 3-4 months. I feel like both of these guys probably want to rest. They're both older, so maybe in the fall we'll see it again.
Yeah, I actually had it scored 114-114. I thought it was a draw. I thought through rounds 3, 4, and 5, I gave all of those to Beterbiev. And I thought round 6 was a swing round. So I thought that could be scored very differently. but the first 2 rounds I gave to Bivol. And then after, in the second half of the fight, I thought Bivol really did turn it on, and he was landing combinations and pretty distinctive combinations on Beterbiev as well. And there was a little bit of a moment where I felt that Beterbiev let the 8th round and the 9th round slip away from him. Like, we didn't see him being like the same type of work rate that he had earlier. So I feel like if you had Beterbiev winning, I don't know about that for this fight, but some people may have. I feel like if you had Bivol winning by just 1 round in this fight, I would totally be okay with that, and I wouldn't be mad at it. But I had it scored a draw, and I thought that in the later rounds, Bivol did what he had to do to get the victory. So I'm actually not mad at this, but I did have it scored a draw. I do feel like at one point in this fight, Beterbiev was kind of dominating, and then he kind of like took some rounds off, and I feel like this is such a close battle between both of these guys. Some of these rounds I feel like you could have gave to either guy, but round 6 I feel like was a big swing round. Let us know in the comments how you had it. I'm not mad at Dmitry Bivol winning this one. I just feel like 116, 112 was a little bit too far apart for one judge. I think if you kind of gave it to Bivol by 1 round, that's definitely fair. I'm not going to be mad at that because I had it scored a draw. But it does set up, and of course, we're going to get possibly a third fight, a trilogy fight between these two, because why wouldn't we? It makes the most sense for both sides in terms of them getting money. Not saying that it's a conspiracy theory here. I'm just saying it makes the most sense. But
Sure.
you did hear Bivol say in the post-fight interview that he was going to take some time off. So here's the thing. If we're actually going by who we thought won in the first fight, Bryan and I both thought that Dmitry Bivol won the first fight, right?
Very close, but yes. We also got a super chat, by the way. Just
Yes.
let you know, we got to put that up here. But we'll
Tyrone,
get to
we are
we'll
going to
get to
get to
Tyrone
that.
in a second. Yes, just because we're doing the intro monologue. Well, not monologue, but
Yeah. So if you think about that factor, like, we did have Bivol winning that first fight. Some people thought Beterbiev won, whatever, right? But if you actually take into consideration that Bivol won the second fight, in the third fight, Beterbiev is going to be older, sneakily older, if they don't do it within 3 to 4 months, because Bivol just said he wants to take some time off. So that makes everything really interesting, because if this fight is to happen within the next 6 months, he could wake up one day and just be older, because that's how much it could hit you. So I would feel like Beterbiev would not want the time off, would not want too much time off from this. So we'll see if the fight happens within 3 or 4 months. I think they were saying it was like 133 days since the first fight or something like that.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I'm okay with Bivol getting the victory here. I felt like he did avenge the first fight. I thought he won the first fight. However, very, very close. I had it scored a draw, so I'm not going to be too upset about that, because we got some comments on the main event. Ace _317. I love the fight, and it was close, but I do think Bivol won the fight.
Yeah.
But what I think is more interesting is what happens next. A good fight to make would be Beterbiev Benavidez for a title shot. So this is interesting. Say if Bivol, because I think this is an important piece, Bryan. If Bivol ends up taking some time off like he said he was going to take, what's next then?
Depends how much time. Because if it's a couple extra months, like if we could still get Beterbiev Bivol 3 in October, then whatever. Like, that's fine. If he's talking about I'm not coming back until next February, then yes, Beterbiev will probably need something to do in the meantime. I don't know if I'd be running to fight David Benavidez of all people, but Artur Beterbiev is 40 years old. He turned 40 in January. Dmitry Bivol is 34, and I think he just turned 34 in December. So I think ultimately Dmitry Bivol, like, I don't think he's going to take that much time to where Artur Beterbiev is going to need a stay busy fight. That would surprise me a little bit. I still think, because logically, I mean, these guys fight twice a year, like the upper echelon guys. Hell, a lot of them fight once a year, and some of them fight once every other year. But in the case of Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, I still think it's a fight we can get late in the year. So I wouldn't stress out about, hey, Benavidez needs to fight Artur Beterbiev. It's like, no. And if I'm Artur Beterbiev, honestly, I'm not taking another fight next unless it's the Dmitry Bivol fight. I don't care when it is. Like I'm
Yeah.
absolutely, I'm just gonna fight for the title again. And if I win, I win. I lose, I lose. But this is it. Like there's no other fight that should interest him at this point.
Yeah, and at the same time, like I don't think Beterbiev has to entertain a Benavidez at this point, right? Like this is the
No,
fight that I think everyone wants to see now because it's a trilogy fight. It's for undisputed, and these guys have given us two really really good fights, two very good entertaining fights. So I do believe even if it's a 6 month delay, I think it might even help Beterbiev because he's still wearing that on his knee. Like he's getting older, sneakily older, like really old at this point. And I think that he could easily just beat, if not easily, but if he could beat Bivol in the trilogy fight, I think he could sail off into the sunset and just call it a career. Because what else would Beterbiev have to prove at that point?
both of them, both of them could. Jay drops an interesting comment. We'll get to that later. But that's one of my favorite things to talk about, as you know. Um,
Yeah.
it's just what's going on, like sort of underneath the hood, out there. Speaking of, we did get a comment about Carlos Adames. I don't know if we want to touch on that right now, or do we want to
We're
wrap up on the light heavyweights? But
let's
there's
wrap up on the light heavyweights and in the heavyweights, because I think then we can move on to that because there was a robbery today. You
we knew
know,
there'd
this
be at least one.
yeah.
Fitting that it was that one. We'll get to why in a second. But yeah, we know what's next. We know what should be next. Is better is Bivol better be F3. I'm certain it's gonna be out there in Saudi Arabia again. The atmosphere, that's probably the best atmosphere that they've had for a fight at any point. So I guess
I didn't even
kudos to
think it was
them.
that good.
No, I mean I'm not saying it was like an amazing one, but it was better. It was better this time around. Although weirdly, like I feel like it was a very pro Dmitry Bivol crowd, and I don't know why that is necessarily.
I'm not quite sure because
But
there's a lot of Better BF fans, in the house as well. Lots of support there for both of those guys.
mhm,
But I think that's the only fight that these guys should be looking to,
that's
fighting
it.
each other for the trilogy fight.
That's
I
it.
don't think they got to look elsewhere. I think Benavidez has other options as well, and we'll kind of see what happens. But obviously, interesting name because when he beat David Morrell, that was kind of the rumor that was going around that he would be fighting the winner of Dmitry Bivol and Beterbiev. But because Bivol won this one, sets up a trilogy fight. So I don't think anything else is that confusing.